Hello and welcome to Lessons from the Halfway Point. My name is Jed Miller. I'm the pastor of First Baptist Church of Beulah. I've been the head pastor here for about 5 years, and before that, I did about 12 years in youth ministry at various churches. This year, I turned 36 years old, which I had the realization while I was recording the video last time that means I am 18 years past my 18th birthday. And that is a fairly sobering experience, and what causes many of us to drift into what we often call midlife crisis. I'm not quite at the midpoint yet, but it could easily be this moment where I ask myself the questions: what have I done with my life? What's the point of all this? And have I truly learned anything from all of it? And so rather than spiraling into craziness, I instead decided I wanted to record some videos to give out just basic life lessons to those who may be younger in ministry, younger in life, younger in fatherhood than I am, and tell you some things that I've learned in the hopes that maybe you won't have to reinvent the wheel by learning them independently the same way that I did. Now, I made the comment before. I fully understand that when I was 18, I might not have heeded these kinds of things or a video like this coming from somebody my age. But I do hope that either for people my own age or people younger, that this will be something helpful and a resource to you to not have to reinvent or do all of these things again yourself. Today, I wanted to talk about a third lesson that I've learned throughout the years of my life, minor though they may be in comparison to some other people. And that is the lesson that you have to be able to say no. Now, on a basic level as a pastor, this feels a little bit counterintuitive because part of what we are trained to do is say yes and try to help people through their problems and try to work through everybody's stuff while still getting our own things done as well. And even though that's kind of what we're trained to do, one of the problems that comes with that is that we end up in this place of burnout where we've said yes to so many things and we've tried to be faithful to doing so many things that we end up in a place that we can't help anyone. We all kind of know this analogy, but it's the analogy of the airplane, right? If an airplane is going down and the masks drop from the ceiling, what they always tell you is put your mask on first, because if you pass out from lack of oxygen, you can't help anyone else. And much the same is true in the life of a pastor, a husband, and a father. If you yourself get burnt out to the point where you don't really feel like or are capable or have the energy to do anything specific, then you are really going to have a problem helping anyone else with the things that they are going through. Truthfully is a lot of these lessons come down to how do we get certain sinful ideals, even if they're from a worldly standpoint good, out of our lives. And in this case, it comes to the standpoint of pride, as it does in many of the cases of the lessons we're talking about. First thing we have to understand about ourselves, if we are going to get that kind of pride out of ourselves, is that we are not God. We are not, in fact, all powerful. We cannot be everything to everyone. On the top end, we all have our own unique skills and abilities that not every other pastor has. Some of our pastors are administrators. They are great in the office, but bad with people. Some of our pastors are great pastoral pastors. They're amazing with people, but their organization sort of leaves something to be desired. I would fit myself into this category. I'm good with people. I love to talk with everyone. I want to help people with their problems, but on the back end, I tend to have a problem making sure all the calendar things actually hit at the right times. And then, of course, you've got what we might call the preaching pastors, right? Great in the pulpit. Maybe they're pretty good with people. Maybe they're okay with organization, but their preaching is really where it's at. And much like the adage of the contract worker, anybody as a pastor can only really do two of these things. My dad, as a contractor, used to make this joke, and many of you may know it: the idea that you can have something quick, you can have something cheap, or you can have something good. And any two of those works together, but you can't have all three. If it's going to be quick and cheap, it's not going to be good. If it's going to be cheap and good, it's not going to be quick. And if it's going to be good and quick, it's not going to be cheap. And you can't have all three. If you're going to be a good speaker and you're going to be a good administrator, you're probably not going to be very good with people directly. If you're going to be good with people and a good administrator, you're probably going to have to give up something on the preaching side. And if you're going to be a good administrator and good with people or good with preaching, then you may not be very good with people, and you get the idea. I'm pretty sure I messed that last one up, but that's okay. The truth is, we aren't God. We can't be all of these things. And when we try to, we often end up hurting ourselves, our families, and our lives as they go forward. It is many a pastor who has fallen to a sin that can get you removed from the pastoral role, that ultimately they fell to that because they got so burnt out they just weren't protecting themselves anymore. They never took vacation. They never spent time with their families. They never did any of these other things because they were saying yes to everything the people in their congregation needed or wanted, and they just ran out of energy to fight the battles that all of us have to fight. Now, ultimately, just like the rest of us, any pastor, any father, any husband only has 24 hours in the day. And I wrote down a little list over here I'm going to kind of read from in this idea. Even if you just took the 24 hours we have, you're going to need, let's just say conservatively, 8 hours for sleep. Some people may sleep more, some people may sleep less, but 8 hours is what they recommend. So, right off the bat, 8 hours is going to be spent sleeping. Then, as a pastor, most pastors spend for Sunday morning service in their study time and their research and in their writing and reciting and getting ready for Sunday morning. Spend somewhere between 16 and 20 hours doing that. Let's just say conservatively at 16. That means about 4 hours a day you're using just to get your sermon ready. Now, I also teach Bible study for our Wednesday night stuff to a group there, which means I spend at least 2 more hours getting ready for Wednesday night. And currently, because we don't have a youth pastor at the moment, I also teach our youth, which means I spend about 2 hours doing that as well. So I'm spending a good 8 hours a week always, or sorry, 8 hours a day, jumping in to try and study those things as well. That's a huge portion of my day or of my week that I have to deal with those kinds of things. Assuming you spend at least 1 hour a day in prayer, which I would hope that you do, and as well as if you have kids or a spouse, that you spend 2 or 3 hours with them as well. And figuring as a church pastor, if you're a head pastor like me, you'll have more of this. If you're a youth pastor, you'll probably have a little bit less. Or if you're in other fields, it may go up and down, but you're spending some probably hour, hour and a half on administration. If you need at least a little bit of rest in your day, say you watch a TV show or you just relax playing a video game or maybe you read a book, whatever it is, say you spend an hour doing that and then you take an hour talking to different church members who are going to randomly pop in your office and just sort of disrupt the normal flow of your day, whatever it may be, we are spending so much time. And that's not even counting things like your personal Bible study or anything of that nature. All of us have already jam packed schedules. And when we try to add and add and add to it, because we feel like we can't say no to somebody, it's going to end in only one place, and that place is burnout, where you stop doing all of these things. Truth is, the idea that it's better to say no than to lead to a place of burnout. And we need, as pastors and as men and as husbands, the humility to say to ourselves, I cannot do all of this. I cannot be all these things. I cannot be in all of these places. And admit to our congregations, to our wives, sometimes to our kids, hey, I can't do all of these things. So I need to prioritize. Now, obviously, as a pastor and as a husband and as a father, you should prioritize your wife and kids first and foremost over everything. I mean, God should come first in your personal walk, and then your family should come second because those are the people God has given you directly to help lead in the growing of their faith and the growing of their walk with Him. And then after that, as a pastor, comes your congregation and your church body. And then, of course, last but not least, just your own well being. But all those things cannot be helped if you're not also taking care of yourself. And you need to admit that and own that to yourself and also to your congregation and family and say, hey, look, I'm going to be prioritizing certain things. I'm going to say no to certain things because I just can't do all of this at once. Good advice was given to me a while back by a pastor named Paul Brooks. He's the former pastor of the church here where I serve. Uh, he was the interim pastor for about 3 years here. And in talking with him afterwards, I was in my first pastoral role. I was trying to do everything that I thought I needed to do and try to do everything in the major control position. And I had called him to ask about an issue that was going on and ask if he had had a similar issue. And in doing this, the wisdom coming out of this man was just pouring out of him onto me. And he gave me a statement that I thought was great. And it was what we call the 70% rule. As pastor of your church, probably because of your education, because of your training, because of the amount of time you have to study the Word of God and do lots of other things that sort of help the ministry ways, you can probably do everything that needs to be done in the church at a way higher scale and a way better way than most of your congregation. That doesn't mean you're smarter or better. It just means you have a different level of training in the things that you want to get done. And you have a particular vision for what you want to see getting done. And so, in your mind, whatever the thing may be, whether it be the way you want the fellowship hall decorated for a certain event, or the way you want your slides made up for a particular sermon series, you might be able to do that at peak efficiency and get exactly what your vision is. But other people in your church do actually want to help. They want to be a part of what's going on. But sometimes as pastors, we can look at it and go, well, they're not going to do it as well as I would do it. And so I'll just handle it. When I mentioned something like that to Mr. Paul Brooks, he told me, Jed, you got to go by the 70% rule. And that is, if a church member who wants to do that thing can do it 70% as good as you can, let them do it. If they can get even to just 70% of what you want done, let that person do it. Because one, it allows them to be part of what the church is doing. Two, it takes it off your plate. And three, ultimately that 30%, unless it's something very, very important, it ultimately is not going to matter. Whether I walk into the fellowship hall at Valentine's and I see little hearts everywhere, or I see big heart bushes or flowers on the tables, or whatever my vision might have been, when I walk in and it looks like Valentine's Day, even if it's not exactly how I would have done it, that's still better off because now it's off my plate and a church member feels empowered to do what they want to do. That is a great idea for all of us as pastors. If someone can do it, 70% of the quality or the vision that we have, we should let them handle it because it gives them buy in to the church. The other way of sort of helping shift the buy in to other people, not that we're trying to slough off work to somebody else, but the way to shift some of these things is oftentimes, as a pastor, as a youth pastor, as someone who is working for the Lord, I have people come into my office and say, "Hey, pastor, wouldn't it be great if we had this? Or wouldn't it be great if this ministry were going? Or man, we always at my last church did XYZ thing." Rather than taking that on yourself and going, okay, well, some of my church members really want these things. Let's see how we can implement them. We should, as a rule, as pastors, begin to start saying, that sounds like a great idea. How can I empower you to go and do that ministry? That way, we're not saying no, like, no, we're not going to do this thing. But we are saying, I don't have the effort or the ability to do this and add it to the plate of things I'm already doing. But I like the idea. You, church member, who cared enough to come and talk to me about it, how can I help you start this thing you have a vision for? One pastor I was talking with a while back made the point this way that when people came into his office, if they had it within their budget, and he always had kind of a light on him for this, they'd come in and say, "Hey, man, I really want to do this father son thing, or I really want to do this mother daughter thing, or I really want to do this couples thing." Man, that sounds like a great plan. I'm going to give you $200. You go figure out what you can do with that that sort of gets to your vision. And if you need more, come back and we'll talk about it. That way, rather than me planning all of this, I've got somebody out there who kind of has a budget that they can go with, obviously, to adjust it for what they're wanting to do. And then when they come back, all I now have is an hour meeting occasionally to talk about where they're at, rather than spending the probably 20 or 30 hours getting all the planning done myself. And this just helps us get things off our plate. And then, of course, I would lay out the final piece of this being this that people are absolutely more important than process. People are more important than process. our focus should be the people of God. Processes will somewhat take care of themselves. I'm not saying they're not important. Obviously, certain things need to be done certain ways, things need to be of a certain quality. We're doing things as unto the Lord, and the same way I would do something as unto a king and want it to be high quality and high ability that I'm doing. I'm putting effort into it. Even though that is true, the primary concern of God is the spirit and the souls of our people and what they're dealing with in their lives, rather than the nitty gritty processes of whether or not offering came first or singing came first, or if we forgot to say one thing or the other. And so, when in doubt, I would say avoid processes and deal with people. I take an opportunity every week at our church to go over and see some ladies who play board games in our fellowship hall on Mondays and some ladies who quilt in our fellowship hall on Mondays. And I take that time to go see them and be with them because it's important to me that they know that I care about them. I don't have anything to do with the process in which they do it, but ultimately I care about them and I want them to know that I care about their thing, even if it's not something I do in particular myself. Truthfully, we should let our deacons do a lot of the work. We should be willing to say, hey, I can't do all of these things, and to pass off responsibility as we are able. Now, that's not to be lazy, but just to admit that we are fallible people, that we can't do it all. Because if we aren't willing to admit that, what ultimately ends up happening is that we fail in our call of God to actually care for everyone because we're not caring for ourselves in the same way.